Hey everyone, welcome back to Demon Slayer Chronicles. Today we'll be diving into episode 5 of the Entertainment District arc, titled Things Are Gonna Get Real Flashy, and that is because fighting is finally beginning, and we're gonna be diving all into that today. As always, I am your host, Andrew Nimsgren, and alongside me I have Dylan Beal, and we'll be diving into everything that happened in this episode and our thoughts of what are coming next. But for a very short recap, the episode does start off with Tengen actually finding one of his three wives, learning a little bit about how he was captured by Daki and the situation that was going on. And then it goes right back over to Tanjiro actually fighting Daki, trying to hold his own using his new flame breathing that he's clearly had a little bit of a backstory and kind of training cycle on that we'll talk more about here in a second. But then it goes over to the rest of the group who are fighting a belt-like monster underground that clearly has a ton of women captured, and they actually end up taking out most of the belt. And then Tengen shows up at the end to kind of help save the last two of his wives, and all of them are connected. And we even get a short little moment talking about the relationship between the three lives and Tengen, and just learning a little bit more about him, kind of making him a more fleshed out character. But that's a very short level recap. Obviously, a lot of you guys have already watched this episode, but kind of a handful of things to dive in. And I want to start first off with talking about Tanjiro versus Daki, Dylan. I
Yeah.
mean, it's even with flame breathing, which we've always kind of been teased is going to be his next power up. It's not looking great for him. So I want to talk about both those of if he has a chance of really getting out of this, and two, flame breathing is going to be sick, right?
Yeah. So I just wanted to get into like actually the fight itself. So one thing I thought that was really interesting is they go into a lot of the micro movements here. So they're talking a lot about like, oh, I have to fall in this way, or to recover, I have to do this little thing. I love that. I love like seeing what does it take to become like beyond human as like a demon slayer. And even with all of those little things happening, he still can't keep up at all.
Yeah. I mean, this is clearly one of the strongest demons that Tenjiro's fought up to the point, and I think they made a very clear point of that leading up to it. And I think even when you see him using his specialty, like, oh, like I can only do these a couple attacks and I'm done for, like that kind of a move, and it's still not going to really seem like it's enough. That's always kind of a scary moment for this because, again, the thing Demon Slayer does so well is to remind you that these are demons. They can recover, they can recuperate, they can come back no matter what. But if
Powerful.
Tanjiro takes one wrong attack, like you said, he has to dive this way, he has to roll. He does one thing wrong, he's dead, or he's severely injured and might as well be dead. So I
Yeah.
think already setting it off at the very beginning of the fight of the big difference between those. Obviously, that is always brought up every single fight, but I think that's going to be something that's really going to impact this fight between these two, especially with how powerful they are. Tengen seems to be preoccupied already. It just feels like there's going to be a lot going on here, and I don't feel like it looks good for Tanjiro already.
So one thing I saw that I think is a potential like level up, like here's just me like trying to like meta it a little bit. So he's more powerful when he can whenever he has a fever, right? And it's all about breathing and controlling your stuff. So like the next thing for him has to be a breathing technique that raises his body temperature. That has to be it, right?
Yeah.
Like that has to be the next logical conclusion for getting his flame breathing to the next level. But like obviously that's not going to come right out of this fight, but still like he needs help. Like he needs some sort of help. Like there's no shot he takes this on his own here. Like someone has to step in at this point.
And we all know who that'll be more than likely. More than likely, Nesgo, who's he's just dropped off, is going to come into the fight at some point. I would guess. I mean, I think they made a very clear point that Tanjiro feels alone, that no one knows he's really fighting. That like they know there's fighting off in the distance, but like they've made it very clear that Tanjiro's kind of on his own, and he's not going to be getting. Tengen isn't going to show up 30 more seconds in the fight. Like he's off dealing with something else right now. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that is going to give us the favorite power combo of Tanjiro and Nesgo coming up here, which I always love seeing. I know Nezuko is almost as much of a main character as Tanjiro, kind of a 1A, 1B, but I do want to see Tanjiro actually maybe injure her before Nezuko comes out, and that pisses her off really badly, and then Nezuko has to come and save the day. Like, I don't want it to feel like without Nezuko, Tanjiro's actually a shitty demon slayer. He kind of is to a point, but he is getting stronger, but I just don't want it to always feel like, oh, Nezuko's going to come out and save the day, because that's already
Yeah.
what it kind of feels like when things aren't looking good for him.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true, and I think it's all going to depend on how does Nezuko's power stack up against Daki's, because like Daki is more powerful than like anything we've seen so far. So like seeing where they kind of compare with each other, because like hopefully they lean on like Tanjiro and Nezuko really have to team up together to fight Daki, rather than just like Nezuko saving the day.
Do you think there's any chance he just runs away? Like that's a
Yes.
very non-main character thing to do, but do you think Tanjiro is one of those main characters that actually like, you know what, I'm probably gonna die here. Let's just run.
I I think yes, but not this fight. I think he has it in him, but not for this fight. Like I don't get those vibes.
Yeah. Yeah, it does feel like it, especially because he feels like he's protecting the one woman and all that kind of stuff too. So if it was just a one-on-one fight that he just kind of stumbled onto, I agree. But I feel like every main character, when you're protecting someone, you're gonna fight to the death, and that always kind of goes one way or another. But I think we didn't. I mean, while the fight has started, I think a lot of the fight kind of focused on Tanjiro talking to himself about flame breathing. So I
Yeah.
think next episode is where the fight's really going to start kind of seeing what happens. He's doing some flame breathing. He's obviously going to be a lot more tired now. So I think next episode will be a lot more Tanjiro versus Daki talking. So I think if you're good with moving over to the other fight that kind of happened, I think we can kind of see more of what happened underground with the belt, with the wives,
Yeah,
Tengen, and the rest.
we need to talk about that belt. What is that belt? Like, what is this sentient belt?
It is weird. Like, I know it's part of her. She has to be because she kind of has the wire around. It's the same design. She kind of used it to capture the one woman, but like, it still just feels weird that we haven't seen like a sentient item, and it
It
doesn't
has a
seem like it's
face.
Daki. Yeah, it's not Daki. They kind of
Yeah.
communicate. It seems like more. So it's maybe like I don't know. It is something very different for Demon Slayer, which I like, but at the same time, it's one of those things that'll never be explained. And I think worrying about it too much, but
So what I'm just considering, I guess, until we see like otherwise, Entertainment District, just throw the logic out the window. We got muscle mice, we got talking belts. Just don't even think too much about it. Just let it happen.
I mean, well, eventually at some point you have to start kind of throwing a lot of that stuff out the window. I mean, I think muscle mice are more explainable than the belt. In this universe, muscle mice are more explainable than the belt. It doesn't make much more sense, but if I had to pick between the two, I think muscle mice you can explain away. The belt, I mean, I guess we've never seen a demon that strong though. So I mean, we've seen demons being able to have an impact on the houses that they live in and all kinds of stuff. So it's not out of the ordinary that they can have an impact on inanimate objects. But maybe since Daki is so much stronger than other demons, that she's able to take that next level with the belt, I think is how you'd kind of explain that away. That she's gotten so much more blood that like her control over a belt can become almost like it's a living thing.
So what I'm also considering this, I guess until we get to the next arc, and this is completely proven wrong, but we're in the Entertainment District arc. I expect them to play up like that, like they play up the show, like literally the flashiness of it all. They're like playing it up a lot, so like that could also go into it. Of like the theming for like the area that they're in is very like entertainment, very like a show. Like the opening is like a show tune almost of how it opens. So I wonder if like maybe that's a part of it too. Of like things are very bright and flashy in this, and like we're able to go to the world of like the unordinary within already the unordinary a little bit.
Yeah, no, I completely make sense, and kind of seeing how they kind of lay into that more will be kind of cool. But the one thing that we've kind of been waiting for now for what this is the fifth episode is we finally do kind of get a full wife reveal. Obviously, we've kind of seen
Yeah.
the intro and the outro, so all three of them are alive, which I didn't know if that was actually going to really be the case or not. I mean, when you kind of have a group of three, you kind of assume maybe one died, sacrificed himself for the other one. So it's good to see that one's obviously kind of been poisoned or really hurt. The other two were kind of saved by Inosuke and Zenitsu, but we are going to acknowledge the fact that they're just the girl versions of the big three, though, right?
Yes, you told me this right before we got on this call, and it like blew my mind when I saw it.
Like it's not one to one, but you can very clearly like. I think the woman, I should really know the wives' names, but we just met them this episode. That looks like a Inosuke, like those are eerily similar. You put those next to each other without his mask on, those are. Then Tenjiro and his kind of counterpart a lot more. The Zenitsu one's a little bit more far apart, but
Yeah,
I
but
just
they
think it's a
still
little
like
too
hit the
on the nose.
archetypes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they hit the archetypes at least.
So I'm starting to wonder, do you think Tengen came to the Butterfly Mansion with the goal of getting the three that looked like his wives? Do you think he beat? Obviously, everyone knows about Tanjiro. He's met Tanjiro. He knows what he looks
Yeah.
like. And he probably at this point knows who he's traveling with.
I
You think
think
it's just a coincidence?
I think he saw something in that group. I think he was like, this group reminds me of another group. I'm not gonna think about it too long, but I'm gonna go after them."
Yeah, so I know it's just kind of more of a fun part. I'd be really curious. Like, I'm sure there's probably some quote somewhere if the manga-kun made it on purpose to kind of look like that, or if it was just kind of how he wanted to design the characters. So I'd love to kind of get some information on that. But it's just fun kind of seeing the counterparts and kind of meeting them. Obviously, we're gonna have a bigger cast than normal. I feel like if they are going to kind of stick around and help a little bit, 7 characters is a lot bigger of a cast than we normally have on kind of the Demon Slayer side. So it'll be cool to see how they kind of bounce that. It's not what we're used to. It's usually a big three, maybe, and maybe Hashira. So adding in a couple more characters and seeing more unique interactions is always awesome. Because usually it's just the main core, and Demon Slayer feels like it has the smallest expanded cast out of any kind of main shonen we've really watched.
Yeah, and we got a lot of time with our main three, so I'm excited to see it open up a little bit and to get this like new dimension in.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, Tengen kind of shows up at the end, bursts through the fucking ceiling, kind of does some more damage to the belt. And then we even get to see kind of a little snippet of like how different he was treating his wives, how they kind of came together, and how much he kind of really cares about him. I mean, I kind of forget what your feelings were on Tengen when we first kind of met him, but is he changing a little bit for you? Or are you still not vibing with him? How are you feeling about Tengen after a little bit more information and some fighting?
I'm liking him a lot more, and I really like how they introduce Hashira, like, whenever they show up, because they show up and they have to show how impactful and powerful they are in one scene, and they did that here. Because he
Yeah.
shows up and you're like, "Oh, no, 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 like, he's the real deal, like, he is here to throw down," and I really like that. I don't know, even though we got, like, a little tease of what he could do, I just want to see more of, like, his abilities, his fighting prowess, because
Oh, you know
I
he's
don't know,
just
he
gonna
seems
pop up
so
at some
cool.
point. At
Oh,
some
he's
point, you
gonna
just
go
have to
nuts.
pop off.
Yeah.
It's literally like things are getting real flashy. Like you were saying earlier, they're leading really into the show, the flashy aspect, obviously who he is. So you're not just gonna bring in a Hishira like him and then not use him in a really fucking awesome way. So I'm really looking forward to when that comes. But yeah, he's definitely kind of grown on me more and more. I love kind of seeing the interaction with his wives, and now that they're safe, I'm sure he'll probably even go harder than he has been to this point. Because now once they're out of harm's way, he doesn't really have anything to worry about. So I
Yeah.
think while combat started this kind of episode, it's really going to start in the next one or two. Once they get there, once Tanjiro actually has to start kind of going, when Nezuko comes out, um,
Yeah, we're gonna
it'll
have
be
our
really
real
interesting.
fights.
Which is honestly where we know Demon Slayer kind of shines. So I'm
Oh,
very
yeah.
kind of excited about this. I'm sure you've already heard, and most people that are kind of watching now, you've probably even heard snippets of how amazingly animated season 2 is, especially towards the end. So it only gets better from here. So I'm incredibly excited to kind of see how that turns out.
So, I was gonna say UFO Table does an amazing job of all that, but do you know how they actually pronounce their name? They don't pronounce it UFO Table.
It's like Ufato. It's like
UFO Tabaru.
yeah,
Why do they call it UFO? Why did they call it UFO? It's UFO.
yeah. I knew it was different. I had no idea how to pronounce it, but I knew it wasn't you. I've never heard someone call it UFO table.
I've been calling it UFO Table for the longest time now.
Ah, Jesus. Yeah, we're great. We're clearly experts on Demon Slayer over here, but I think that kind of wraps up a lot of what I wanted to get to during the episode. Obviously, as we kind of get more into the kind of fighting episodes, there won't be as much to dive into. It'll be more about Taisha secrets, talking about power ups and all this. So, um, unless you got anything else to bring up, I think we just got the Taisha secret left.
Yeah, let's jump into it. So here is the Taisho secret. So the name that they use for the woman ninjas, Kuno Ichi, actually gets its origins in a cant phrase. So you might heard of cant before if you play D&D because you know thieves can't. Essentially, what it is, it's like a hidden language inside of another like language, and they put it in there as a way to like communicate. Like if we're talking in English and I start throwing out some like buzzwords and jargon, you get a clue at what I'm actually speaking about, but people around you don't really understand. So it actually gets its origin because if you break it up into three parts, ku no ichi. So if you take the hiragana letter ku, the katakana letter no, and then the kanji for ichi, and you put them all together, it actually makes the kanji for woman. So it's
Hmm.
like a way of saying woman without actually directly saying woman, like a secret way to say it. And so this was just a way to say woman. But like in the 17th century, there was like this ninja handbook written, and they described like a special like art of ninjutsu called kunoichi no jutsu, which was basically all about like women like infiltrating like palaces and stuff and like going into espionage. And so then after that moment, is when kunoichi started referring to women ninjas.
That's actually sick as fuck.
Yeah, it's so cool, isn't it?
Where do you just Google like where do you come up with that? Like where do you go down that like rabbit hole?
Usually I just like look for certain words or phrases that they don't translate to English because they're usually probably
Got it.
important for some reason. And then I start diving into like what that is. So she was just like, "Oh yeah, we're kunoichi or whatever." I was like, "Okay, well, what is that? Like, let's go figure out what that is."
No, yeah, that's super cool, and I think yeah, it is really cool. Demon Slayer does do a really good job of kind of being historically accurate on a lot of that kind of stuff. Obviously, when you, I guess it is from Japan, so of course they're just going to use the language because it's more built in their culture. But it doesn't feel like you could have just easily just said women ninja, like kind of translate it over. But
Yeah, I
that's
think
cool
that's
shit.
like that is something super important is that like whenever people are translating it over for the dub or the sub or whatnot, you have to make sure that you translate it with like enough accuracy that you can directly translate some things but leave other things pretty vague because there's a lot of just like even in English has this a lot of like words with like really important meaning not because of like what the word means but like the significance of certain words. So like
Yeah.
translation is such a hard job and like one of like the most like overlooked parts about like the industry, the anime industry right now is like how good the translators are.
Yeah. It's always been amazing. Like I remember kind of early on when I'd watch some stuff, like there'd be some like kind of sketchy kind of like subs and stuff like that. But I mean recently it feels like amazing and people are kind of getting to the point where they're actually kind of applauding how good it is. Like even kind of more on the on a more mainstream level. But
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of getting off topic. That's kind of more of a general kind of anime stuff, but it's cool. We're here to talk Demon Slayer, but we're here to talk anime and all that kind of stuff. But I think that's about all we have for today. We'll be back for episode 6 coming up soon. If you want to stay up to date on everything that we are doing, make sure to go over to youtube.com/class1a or go over to twitter.com/class1apod. We also do a My Hero Academia podcast so you can keep up to date. As we're in the off season, we're just kind of going through whatever topic we kind of feel like, but season 6 is getting closer and closer by the day. So make sure to be all the way up to date over there as well if you're excited for the new season, My Hero that's coming out. But thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Demon Slayer Chronicles. We hope you all enjoyed it, and we will see you all next time.